Now let us begin with our study. You can get your notes ready. The Udumbarikā Sihanada Sutta, D25. Right? Okay, you can see the first page of the translation on the top right-hand corner as usual. There's the blurb, the title in Pali, Udumbarikā. You can see the last A or the vowel A is pronounced as R in Pali. In Pali, you pronounce as the sound of the letter or vowel. So this is R. And there's a macron over it. The macron is a line. Macron means big. So when there's a line over the A, it means it's a long vowel, 2 counts, like music, 1, 2. So R, okay. R is short. This is R. Udumbarika is a feminine word. It's the name of a queen, Queen Udumbarika. It's also a flower. This queen built what's called a wanderer's park. So this is where the event took place. Sihanada, Singha is Pali, like Singapore, Singha. First part of Singapore's name is the same. Singha is Sanskrit. Sīha is Pali. Nāda means the noise made by someone. Nāda, the roar of the lion. A lion roar is a expression of faith, a kind of special act in terms of teaching by the Buddha or an Arahat, or even someone like us. If we have great faith and we declare our faith publicly, it's called a lion roar. Sutta means teaching. It means a thread, but the thread goes back right to the Buddha, in the sense the teaching goes right back to the Buddha. Udumbarikā Sihanada Sutta, the discourse on the lion roar at Udumbarika, D25. So you can remember the number or the name. And a quick summary, the theme, the Dharma's true purpose and the spiritual basis for interfaith dialogue. So this is the surprise at the end that we have here. Now, this sutta is quite long, so I'll kind of summarize for you, give you the highlights. Let me go down to the translation now. It's a story about a wanderer called Nigroda. Nigroda means banyan, so his name actually is banyan, like a banyan tree. So apparently he's quite an old man, an old wanderer. Okay, so here we see the story opens with a layman by the name of Sandana. He goes to this wanderer's park. Right, I'm going straight down to number 1. Thus have I heard. At one time, the Blessed One was staying on Vulture's Peak near Rajagaha. This Vulture's Peak is very near where these wanderers are staying. And this place is out, they're all outside Rajagaha, the big city at the time. At that time, the wanderer Nigroda was staying in the Udumbarika Wanderers Park with a large company of some 3,000 wanderers. At dawn, there you are. So this is early morning, before the sun is not up yet. The house lord Sandana came to Rajagaha to see the Blessed One. Then it occurred to the house lord Sandana, it is not the proper time to see the Blessed One since he is in retreat. So at this time, the Buddha is still meditating before dawn. So, and the monks also be meditating, the monks worthy of esteem. So he thought, well, why don't he visit the wanderers? Now, the wanderers are a different group of people. Here you see the monks, the Buddha and the monks are meditating as if to welcome the sun. But the wanderers are doing something else. Look at section 2. Now, at that time, the wanderer Nigroda, this is their leader, Nigroda, was sitting with a large crowd of wanderers, all talking loudly, shouting, making great noise, a din, and indulging in various kinds of low talk. Low talk, actually, the literal translation is animal talk, tirachana kata. That is to say, talks about kings and robbers, ministers of state, about armies, dangers and wars, about food and drink, clothing, beds or furniture, gardens and and sense, about relatives, about vehicles, and so on and so forth. In other words, very worldly things. Okay, so they were talking very loudly. You can imagine the noise early in the morning. It's so easy to hear them in the quiet of the morning. And here you have this Sandana coming along. The Sandana is a Buddhist, is a lay disciple of the Buddha. The commentaries say that he is actually a non-returner, so it's quite an advanced, attained layperson. But at this stage, I'm not very sure whether he is already a non-returner or not. I suspect he has not. It's not yet a non-returner, perhaps. I will later tell you why. So he comes. He decides that why don't I go and see the wanderers? Since I'm so early, all right? So the Nigroda sees this Sandana coming from afar, section 3. Then the wanderer Nigroda saw the house-lord Sandana approaching from a distance, and he called his own company of followers to order, saying, "Good sirs," the Pali word is bonto, "be quiet, please. Don't make a noise, good sirs. The house-lord Sandana, a disciple of the recluse Gotama, is approaching. He is one of those white-dressed lay disciples of the recluse Gotama in Rajagaha. And these good folks are fond of quiet. They are taught to be quiet and speak in praise of quiet. If he sees that this company is quiet, he will most likely want to come and visit us." When this was said, the wanderers fell silent. So here is a bit of humorous observation, right? You have to contrast the Buddha and the monks are meditating, and here these wanderers, they are very noisy. So obviously we know they're not very serious with their religious life. They are basically earning a living, if you like. And you see a lot of this even today in India. You find people wearing yellow, long hair, not washing themselves. And in the cities, then certain areas, certain times of the day, the pious will come and give food and just come along. They will come along and collect their food. So these are the wanderers. All right, so they want this Sandana to come. I mean, if Sandana comes, they might get a supporter. This is the idea. So Sandana comes along, and then they greet each other. Then now Sandana, he's quite an open person. He will speak quite openly. So this is what he says, section 4, I'm summarizing. He tells this Nigoda, he says, you know, the Buddha loves quiet, so he doesn't talk loudly like all the wanderers here. I mean, it's obviously you could hear them, you know. So now this is again very interesting because the wanderer, Nigroda, seems to feel slightly offended with this, all right? So he responds in quite a nasty way. So this is the beginning of the sutta, okay? You see this drama building up, all right? Section 5. So before that, there's a beautiful line I want to read to you, just a couple of lines above. The Blessed One's way is different. Okay, so this is where Sandana says the Blessed One, the Buddha, is very different from the wanderers. He resorts to remote and secluded dwellings in the forest, in the jungle, free from noise, with little sound, alone with the winds. I like this phrase especially, alone with the winds, away from humans, conducive for seclusion. So this is more for like a meditation. When this was said, the wanderer Nigroda replied to the house lord Sandana. Okay, make a note of this, because this is what is going to set the background of sutta, and then the Buddha will come. Well now, house lord, do you know with whom the recluse Gotama talks? With whom does he converse? From whom does he find his clarity of wisdom? He is awkward in an assembly, no good at conversation. He keeps only to the fringes of things. Just like a one-eyed cow walking in circles, he keeps to the fringes. So he's quite sarcastic, quite nasty. Even so, the recluse Gotama's wisdom is destroyed by his solitary life. He is awkward in assembly and so on. Then he boasts, okay, this Nigroda boasts, he says, indeed, House Lord, if the recluse Gautama were to come to this assembly, we will baffle him with a single question. We will knock him over like an empty pot. All right, so here you are. This is the beginning of a very interesting situation. But no one just says something like that and gets away with it, right? So now the Buddha, enter the Buddha if you like, but the Buddha is not there yet. The Buddha is just coming down from Vulture Peak, section 6. Now the Blessed One with his divine ear faculty, so he can hear, he's got very good ears, let's put it that way, he can hear this conversation from a great distance. With his divine ear faculty, purified and superhuman, reaching beyond the normal human range, heard this exchange between the house lord Sandana and the wanderer Nigroda. So he heard this, but he doesn't directly go there. He comes down from Vulture's Peak and he goes to the bank of the Sumagada. It's a lake, beautiful lake, and he walks up and down beside the peacock feeding ground. So there are peacocks there, and he's walking up and down, and that's when Nigroda sees the Buddha. Right, so now he's getting very excited, says, wow, that's the Buddha, let's invite him over. He wants the Buddha to come over. So further down, good sirs, be quiet, please. Don't make a noise, good sirs. So he's telling his followers again, okay, be quiet now. You're quiet, maybe the Buddha will visit us, right? Then when the Buddha comes, we will kind of ask him a question, right? So the wanderers are silent now. So this is the first part. Now we see the Buddha coming. Okay. So section 7. Then the Blessed One approached the wanderer Nigroda. And then the wanderer Nigroda said to the Blessed One, "Please come, Bhante, Blessed One. Welcome, Bhante, Blessed One. It's been a long time since Bhante, Blessed One, has found the occasion to come here. Let the Bhante, Blessed One, take a seat. He has a seat prepared." So this is a kind of common courtesy, right? So here you can see someone can be very pleasant, very nice outwardly, but in their minds they have some other thoughts. So then they kind of just talk some things like what the Buddha was doing. He said he saw the Buddha walking up and down, exercising. The Buddha does that every day. So, monks sit for long hours, like the Buddha sits for long hours sitting. So he does this walking up and down. So this is a gentle exercise the Buddha does at dawn for a couple of hours, and then at dusk around sunset for another couple of hours to stretch themselves. So he asked the Buddha the question, right? 7.4. If the recluse Gautama were to, so he says, Bhante, what is the doctrine in which the Blessed One trains it or disciplines his disciples, by which the Blessed One's disciples gain the confidence to declare their principal support and the fundamentals of the holy life? So it's quite a complicated question. Basically, how does the Buddha train his followers? All right, so this is what the Buddha replies, 7.5. Nigroda, it is hard for one holding a different view, keeping different priority, having a different personal preference, or under a different influence, keeping to a different practice, following a different teaching, to understand the doctrine that I teach my disciples. All right, so the Buddha said, okay, it's a bit difficult, because you are not a practitioner of my teaching. So 7.6, come now then, Nigroda, ask me about your own teaching, about what you regard as abstinence, or about the highest abstinence thus. And how, Bhante, is the practice of ascetic abstinence fulfilled? How is it not fulfilled? So here, instead of talking about his teaching, the Buddha actually tells Nigoda, why don't we talk about what you are practicing? So this is very interesting. You don't normally see this in the suttas. So actually the Buddha said, let's talk about what you are practicing. So there's something going on here. We're going to find out what happened. Now this word ascetic abstinence, tapo jigucha, okay, seems to be an early Jain practice. So they were probably either Jains themselves or they were practicing similar ascetic practices like the Jains. Okay, so you can see again, the wanderers are talking very loudly, they're not really meditating. And here they're talking about abstinence. They claim to be practicing all this self-mortification, if you like. In other words, all the strict practices of self-mortification, which the Buddha practiced for 6 years. So the Buddha knows what he's talking about. So he tells Nigoda, let's talk about this. Right? So imagine here, the wanderers, 3,000 of them were watching. Right? So they were thinking that the Buddha would retaliate and reply. But here, the Buddha says, why don't we talk about your practice? So what is the response? Next line. When this was said, a great commotion arose among the wanderers. So they were surprised with the Buddha. It is wonderful, it is marvelous, how great the powers and virtues of the recluse Gautama in holding back his own doctrine and inviting others to discuss theirs. Right? So I said, wow, look at the Buddha. He's saying, he's not talking about himself now. He wants to find out about our practice. All right, so Nigoda says, okay, right? So, and now begins the dialogue, if you like. Remember, this is Digha Nikaya, the long dialogues. So the dialogue begins with a very long one here. And 8.2. So the Buddha starts by talking about the kind of ascetics there are in this group, okay? 8.2. Here, Nigoda. So here, meaning in that group, okay? A self-mortifying ascetic who goes about naked, of loose habits, licking his hands, not coming when invited, not stopping when invited. He does not accept food brought to him, nor food specially prepared for him, and so on. So in other words, he's very strict. This recluse, he doesn't go around, collecting food like the monks. So he doesn't accept fish or meat. He's a vegetarian. All kinds of strict things. Actually, the whole list of things there. And then 8.3, he just takes a bit from every house, maybe one little bit here, one little bit there. And he might even eat as little as just one mouthful a day, and so on. So there's a whole list of his practices here. And then he doesn't shave his head, but he plucks his hair. So this is a very common practice with the early Jains. Even today, the Jain monks, they will pluck their hair. And to them, this pain is something good to feel. Oh, there is suffering. And I read somewhere that even the lay practitioners are now taking this up. Okay? So this is the kind of self-mortification that Nigoda's wanderers are supposed to be doing. Okay? Of course, whether they actually are doing this or not, we're not sure, but definitely these are the things to talk about. So the Buddha said, okay, these are the whole list of practices, right? So the Buddha is claiming he knows all these things. And then we go to the next page, 8.7. So he asked Nigoda, what do you think, Nigoda? Is the practice of ascetic abstinence fulfilled or not? Right. So by keeping to all these strict rituals, do you think these ascetics have completed the practice? Nigoda says, yes, indeed, Bhante, it is fulfilled. So he thinks that, yeah, But the Buddha says, but Nigoda, this practice of ascetic abstinence has various imperfections, I say. Right? So you see this, the Buddha coming back with some very surprising response, right? Nigoda thinks, oh yeah, this is great. They're doing all these strict rituals. Then the Buddha says, but then, these people who do all these outward rituals, they are still imperfect. Then the Buddha is going to say, what are these imperfections? About 2 pages of them at least. Section 9. So Nigoda asked the Buddha, in what way, Bhante, does the Blessed One say it has various imperfections? Now, let's look at some examples the Buddha gives. The Buddha says, here, Nigoda, an ascetic practices austerity. On account of that austerity, he delights in it, thinking that he has won the goal. So it's a very simple situation. He feels kind of elated. He says, oh, wow, I've got it, but he has not got it. So this, the Buddha says, is an imperfection. Right? He thinks he's got it, but he's very happy about it, but has not got it. Then number two, he praises himself. He tells others, I've got this state indirectly, and he disparages others. He attacks others. He says others don't have all these powers. So there's a second imperfection. Then the third one, brackets 3, the Buddha says, you have this person, an ascetic. He thinks he has attained certain states, but then he is conceited, he's infatuated, and he's heedless. He's not very mindful. Right? So it's also another imperfection. And then number 4, we can see number 10 there. This ascetic, he accepts gains, he gets donations and honors and fames, and he's very proud, he's very happy with this. So here again, he's not really practicing because he's thinking about all these gains. Then number 5, he praises himself because he got all these gains, and he disparages, attacks others. So in other words, this person is not really practicing. Now then he's again heedless and so on. And then number 7, this so-called ascetic, when he gets his food, he divides his food into 2 parts. He says, okay, I'm going to eat the part that I like, this part I don't like, I'm going to put it aside. And he enjoys his food. So, okay, here again, this person is not really training, not even a real ascetic. Then 8, further down, you have this so-called ascetic. He receives gains, honors, and fame, and he thinks kings, ministers, nobles, Brahmins, housemasters, religious teachers will honor me. So he's thinking of popularity, fame. So again, the Buddha says he's not perfect in this sense. And next example, number 9 is even worse. He lives in abundance, eating all sorts of things, and yet he attacks others, talks bad about others. And then number 10, he sees other recluses or other ascetics being patronized by people, and he gets jealous and he attacks them. And he said, this is a bit funny. I'm going to read to you the section 10, the 3rd sentence. So this ascetic says, oh, this fellow is living in abundance. He is being patronized, honored, and respected, worship amongst families, but they do not patronize, honor, respect, worship me, an ascetic who lives a rough life, right? So he has this very big ego, right? Number 11, this ascetic sits before the public, sits before people in the public, right? So you can see the highlighted words here. The commentary seems to explain this kind of ascetic, they're doing some rituals, so they need to show themselves in public, and they're not really practicing, they're just kind of attracting people. Then number 12, he goes about ostentatiously showing off to families, right? Even today, you see sometimes as you go to religious groups, you find some people dressing overly nice as religious teachers, you're wondering what they are. So this is the kind of ascetics the Buddha says. They look so different from others because they want to attract attention. So this is not the real kind of recluse. Brackets 13. The Buddha says that then you have these ascetics who resort to underhanded conduct. They're not honest. When someone asks, do you approve of this? When he does not approve, he says, I do. And when he does approve, he says, I do not approve. So it's a conscious liar. So imagine a religious person, religious ascetic who doesn't tell the truth. Is quite sad, isn't it? Then brackets 14, there's a number 12 there. Here is, furthermore, Nigroda, an ascetic, when the Tathagata or Tathagata's disciple presents the Dharma in a way that deserves his essence, withholds his essence. Okay, here is where you have this like, honesty is very important in religious circles. When it is true, you accept it as true, right? You notice when the evangelists come to visit you to convert you, once they know that you know, then they will change their tactic. They're not honest about it. So this is the problem here. So here, this ascetic, when a monk comes along and teaches the Dharma, they know that it is right, but they do not say so. They do not want to accept it. So again, the Buddha says this is not a perfect, not a good ascetic at all. Number 15 is quite direct. This ascetic is angry and resentful. And then there's a list of negative qualities here. Section 16 is mean and spiteful. 17, envious and selfish. 18, crafty and deceitful. 19, obstinate and arrogant. 20, has bad desires. 21, has wrong views. 22, stuck to his own views, right? Now, okay, so to us to say, wow, there's quite a lot of things here. But this is the Buddha's observation. And he's telling Nigroda, and Nigroda knows very well these are all true. So this is what the Buddha is saying. Although these so-called ascetics practice all those very strict self-mortifying exercises mentioned earlier, they have all these problems. Of course, all this sounds quite negative, but then the Buddha switches tone. In the next section, he says, oh, okay, there are good ones. There are those who are serious about their practice. So this is under the purified ascetic, section 13, 1.3. So here is where it's all the opposite of the previous one. Section 13, on account of that austerity, he is not pleased with himself, thinking that he has won the goal. Right, so you find here the ascetic, although he is practicing, he doesn't delight like showing off. So he said, oh, let me be careful, let me find out, am I really progressing well, and so on. So he doesn't praise himself and attack others. He doesn't show his jealousy towards others. He doesn't divide his food and live in a luxurious way, opposite of all those things we've mentioned earlier, which I'm not going to. So that all those 22 bad habits are repeated, but they are now the opposite. This recluse is good. He really seriously practices. So now we come to section 15.2. All right, so the Buddha is finished listing all the good qualities of this true practitioner, if you like, the true ascetic. So now the Buddha asks Nigroda again, 15.2. What do you think, Nigroda? Is the practice of ascetic abstinence purified by these things or not? So do you think this ascetic is a good one? So now Nigroda thinks, oh yes, this must be it. Certainly it is, Bhante. It reaches the peak here, penetrating the hardwood, right? So here the Buddha is using the metaphor of a tree trunk. So the hardwood is the hardest part, the best part of the tree, okay? So here Nigroda says, yeah, this is the real ascetic. But then the Buddha replies, anticlimax, we say, 15.3, no, Nigroda, it does not reach its peak there, penetrating the hardwood. It has only reached the loose outer bark, right? So here is just the outside only, the loose pieces of bark, all right? So this is section 15.3. Now we come to another cycle. This time the header is called Talk on Purity Comparable to the Tree Bark. This is the one. All right, so now Nigroda is becoming slightly impatient. He says, well then, Bhante, how does the practice of ascetic abstinence reaches peak, penetrating the heart wound. Right? Says, how do these people really practice the proper way? Okay, let's look at 16.2 now. Okay, so now the Buddha goes into something that Negro is very familiar with. This, in fact, this also is a practice of the Jains, probably the early Jains. Here, Nigroda, an ascetic, observe the 4 restraints. And what are the 4 restraints? Here, Nigroda, an ascetic, does not harm a living being, nor cause any to be harmed, nor does he approve of such harming. Right? So this is very identical with the Buddhist practice of non-killing. We keep the precept of not killing, precept number 1. We don't cause to kill, nor do we approve of others killing. He does not take the not given, nor cause any to be taken, nor does he approve of such taking. So you see, these are the 3 points of purity. And the 3rd precept is about telling a lie, again, in 3 ways, purified. And then number 4, he does not desire for sense pleasure. Here is a different practice, not the Buddhist practice. So the 3rd precept becomes number 4. So these are the 4 restraints. So the Buddha said, okay, this person practices the 4 restraints, the 4 precepts, and then he clears his mind for meditation. 16.3 now. Then he resorts to a solitary lodge, a forest, the foot of a tree, a mountain or hill, a mountain gully, a mountain cave, a charnel ground, jungle thicket, the open air, a heap of straw. Then on returning from the alms round after his meal, he sits down cross-legged and holding his body erect, establishes mindfulness before him, right? So he meditates. And then during the meditation, he works to overcome the 5 hindrances. I'll just read to you the first one. Abandoning covetousness for the world, here covetousness means desire. He dwells with a mind free from such covetousness, a mind purified of covetousness. So he gets rid of any desiring for the world. Then the opposite, ill will, he clears that away. Then he overcomes sloth and torpor. Number 4, he overcomes restlessness and worry, and he overcomes doubt. So having overcome all these 5 hindrances, the person attains jhana. Now here, the Buddha speaks of the 4 Brahma Viharas, the 4 divine abodes. Because remember, these are not Buddhists, but they are familiar with these practices. These are common practices. So here the Buddha says, okay, now having cleared his mind, his focus, he cultivates loving kindness. And then this is described very much in the way that we have done the loving kindness. So but there's something different here, something very interesting. 17(1), next line. Having abandoned these 5 hindrances, and in order to weaken the impurities of the mind by applying insight, he dwells with a heart of loving kindness. So here, in other words, the Buddha is saying this meditator makes use of loving kindness to apply wisdom. In other words, he uses this to see it as impermanent, suffering, just these 2, because these are not Buddhists, so non-self is not mentioned. Here, these ascetics practice loving kindness and looking at it as impermanence, and they cultivate compassion in the same way for wisdom, for insight, and they practice gladness. This one is brackets 3, next page. And then number 4 is equanimity. So they practice all these 4 kinds of divine abodes to gain wisdom. Okay. Now, again, the Buddha asks Nigroda, section 17.2. 17.2. What do you think, Nigroda? Such being the case, is the practice of ascetic abstinence purified or not? Right. So has he reached the goal? Again, Nigroda thinks, okay, this is really it. So he says, certainly it is, Bhante. Such being the case, the practice of ascetic abstinence reaches the peak here, penetrating the heart, which is the highest level. Again, the Buddha replies, no, Nigroda, the practice of ascetic abstinence does not reach its peak here, nor penetrate the heartwood. It has only reached the bark. Can you imagine? It's just still the outside. It's not inside the wood yet. So again, you can imagine how Nigroda feels. He must be quite embarrassed because he's replying for the wanderers. He's saying, oh, yeah, that's it. But then the Buddha says, no, there's something more, right? So here we see the Buddha using a very interesting approach. It's called a something more approach. He even uses this on the monks. For example, when the monks reach, say, first jhana, then the Buddha will say, no, that's not enough. You've got to build up, go to second jhana, third jhana, and so on. If you've attained string meaning, work hard to attain next stage, once returning, and so on. Right? So you see this principle, this kind of progressive approach being used here on Nigroda. So Nigroda is told, oh no, not done yet, still something more to come. So now we come to the next cycle, okay? So now the Buddha goes through a very similar cycle this time. The person practices the 4 restraints, not killing, not stealing, not telling a lie, and avoiding sense pleasure. Okay, this is the Jain practice. And then he clears away the mental hindrances. And again, he builds up the divine abodes. It's all the same, so I'm not going to go through them. He builds up all the 4 divine abodes: loving kindness, compassion, gladness, and equanimity. And in other words, here the meditator develops jhana, okay, up to the 4th jhana, and he's able to attain the first super knowledge, 18.5. 18.5, all right? There are lots of repetitions here, so I'm kind of summarizing for you. Thus, he recalls his manifold past lives, that is to say, 1 birth, 2 birth, 3 birth, 4 birth, 5 birth, up to hundreds and thousands and hundreds and thousands of births. He's able to recall many lives, even before the world started, and then the world expanded, and so on, world cycles. And then he is able to know, oh, in this life I had this name, I belonged to that clan, I was like this, I was like that. So this is a recall of our own rebirth. Through deep meditation, he's able to have this ability to recall his own past lives. All right, so now the Buddha again asks Nigroda, 18.6. What do you think, Nigroda? This being the case, is the practice of ascetic abstinence purified or not? You think this one, the ascetic has reached the goal? This time, again, Nigroda is very sure. This must be the one. Certainly it is, Bhante. This being the case, the practice of ascetic abstinence attains its peak here, penetrating the hardwood, right? Again, the Buddha says, no, Nigroda. The practice of ascetic abstinence does not reach the peak here, nor penetrate to the hardwood. It has only reached the sapwood, right? So this is the layer before the hardwood, the really hard, precious part of the wood. Actually, apparently here, Nigroda doesn't get the drift of the Dharma here. I mean, if he's a thinker, he'll say, wow, the Buddha is using this metaphor of the parts of a tree. It starts with the outer bark and the inner bark. So obviously, you more or less know what's coming next, but it doesn't think that way. Anyway, the Buddha is reaching the end of his teaching now. So I'll take a break here before we reach that really interesting part. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, Brother Piya. We will take a 5 minutes break now. We can start now.
All right. So now the Buddha goes on with the next stage. It is the last cycle. It's called the hardwood cycle. So the Buddha says, okay, here's this ascetic. He goes through the same practice again. He keeps to the precepts, the 4 precepts of the Jains, and then he overcomes the mental hindrances, and he attains the 4 divine abodes, loving kindness, compassion, gladness, and equanimity. And he's able to gain the second super knowledge. This is called the divine eye. Okay? He's able to recall the past lives of other beings. He is able to know how other beings fare according to their karma. All right. So this is the second super knowledge. So you see here, you have this. This is the real ascetic, okay, and so again, the Buddha asks Nigoda, "What do you think? Is this the one? Is this the peak of the practice, asceticism?" And this time, I suppose Nigoda will be more careful. He said, "Okay, yeah, this is the one." The Buddha says, "Yes, indeed, this is the hard wood." But there is something rather interesting here. You know? Something is missing here. Although the Buddha agrees with Nigoda that the hardwood has been reached, there is what's not said here. The third knowledge is not mentioned here. The third knowledge is that of the destruction of the influxes, overcoming all the defilements that makes one an arhat. The Buddha purposely does not mention this because these are wanderers and they are not ready for the training anyway. So the Buddha only mentions the level which they claim to have attained, that is, they're able to recall the past lives of other people. That's the highest they can attain. So then section 1912. So here, this is the limitation of the wanderers, right? So the Buddha says, 19.13, Nigoda, I train my disciples in something higher and finer. It is through this that they gain the confidence to declare their principal support and the fundamentals of the holy life. So here the Buddha says, okay, you claim that you can attain only recalling past lives of yourself or others, that's all. But I am teaching something more to my followers, the monks, that is attaining arhathood. So this is, so in fact, the Buddha actually is answering the question that Nigoda had in mind in the first place. However, he's using a different road. He's using the teaching of Nigoda himself. So you can see here the Buddha has this very clear mind where he's going to, what he's going to talk about in terms of the ascetics. Now, so how do the other wanderers respond? They were shocked. They said, wow, that's all we know. We only know this, we only have this knowledge of the rebirth of beings according to the karma, but we have not gone beyond that. There's no arahathood. 19.14. When this was said, a great commotion arose among the wanderers. We and our teaching are ruined. We know of nothing higher or far more far-reaching. So our teachings don't go beyond that. So here is where you can see that the wanderers know what's going on, and in a sense they accept it. Okay, it's important to know this, all right? Now the story reaches a different level now. We have the Nigoda being humbled, and you have Sandana coming in again, this layman full of faith. Section 20. And when the house lord Sandana understood thus, surely now these wanderers outside the faith are actually heeding the Blessed One's word, giving ear to it, directing their minds towards direct knowledge. So he's quite happy and he's quite excited in the sense, he says, wow, looks like the wanderers are ready. This is what he thought anyway. Then he said to the wanderer Nigoda, notice he calls Nigoda Bhante. Bhante Nigoda, you have said to me, well now, house lord, do you know with whom the Cruise Gautama talks? With whom does he converse? So here he reminds Nigoda, so you remember when I first met you, you were attacking the Buddha, right? you're saying that his wisdom is nothing at all and so on. So you will knock him down like an empty pot. That's what you said, right? But now you see that he's quite wise. Okay, so 20.4. And at these words, the wanderer Nigroda sat silent, dismayed, his shoulders drooping, face down or hanging his head, glum, unable to speak, at a loss for words. So in other words, he feels bad. He feels, wow, he's wrong. Now the Buddha, of course, watching them. So the Buddha asks. Now here, notice again, the Buddha knows what's going on, but still he goes through the motion of asking questions. 21. Now the Blessed One, seeing the wanderer Nigroda feeling, quite admitting defeat, he asks, "Is it true, Nigroda, that you said all those words?" So he said, "You say all those nonsense things." Then, to this extent, Nigroda is honest. He says, "Bhante, it is true. I said those words. Foolishly, mistakenly, unskillfully." So at least it's honest. He says, "I shouldn't have said that." Then the Buddha asks him, he says, 21.2, "What do you think, Nigroda? Have you heard it being said by wanderers of old, who were old, venerable teachers and the teachers of teachers, that those who in the past were arahats, fully self-awakened Buddhas, whenever they gathered, do they shout and make a lot of noise?" Then the Nigroda said, "No, I heard that they did not do that, These Buddhas in the past, when they gathered, peaceful and silent, right?" So in a sense, Nigroda knows all this too. He knows that even in the past, the stories about the Buddhas in the past, they resorted to living in the forest, peacefully meditating, right? So, so now the Buddha continues. This time the Buddha gives a positive challenge to Nigroda, 31.5. This is another new level of communicating with Nigroda. The Buddha invites Nigroda to the training, to be trained under him. 21.5, "Nigroda, you are an intelligent man of mature years. Has it never occurred to you that having awakened himself, the Blessed One teaches the Dharma of awakening? Having tamed or disciplined himself, the Blessed One teaches the Dharma for taming oneself. Having calmed oneself, the Blessed One teaches the Dharma leading to calm. Having himself crossed beyond, the Blessed One teaches the Dharma for crossing beyond suffering, that is. Having attained Nirvana himself, the Blessed One teaches the Dharma for attaining Nirvana." Okay, so this is the question the Buddha asked. But this is when Nigroda did not say yes. Rather, he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Bhante, I have done wrong, I have transgressed. I shouldn't have said all those things. Let me apologize." You see, he could have simply said, "Yes, I would like to train under you," but he was rather feeling guilty. He says, "I said the wrong thing, I'm sorry about this." So he apologizes to the Buddha. Then the Buddha says, "Well, since you are honest about it and you accept things as they are, it's good that you're honest, and to that extent, you're good in saying so." Look at the last two lines, section 22, last two lines. "For Nigroda, it is progress in the discipline of the noble ones, when seeing a transgression as a transgression, in other words, a mistake as a mistake, one makes amends in accordance with the Dharma and shows restraint thenceforth." Now again, the Buddha invites Nigroda to train under him. 22.2. "Now, Nigroda, I tell you this." Notice the Buddha is stressing, "I tell you this. This is your chance to practice, to gain higher level. Let an intelligent person, honest, trustworthy, upright, come to me. I will instruct him. I will teach him the Dharma. If he then practices what he is taught to attain for himself here and now, the supreme goal of the holy life, for the sake of which sons of faith go forth from the household life into the homeless life, will take him 7 years, right? So I say, if you train within 7 years, you will get the fruit. You will become an arhat. Oh, don't talk about 7 years of the Buddha. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it goes down like that. This is the oral tradition method. Finally, you go down to the bottom. 7 days, the bottom of section 22. It will take him only 7 days. Now, if you really are serious, it will take as little as 7 days. Maybe this is how the 7-day retreat started, right? So we all go for retreat 7 days, hoping to get something. All right, again, Nigoda is silent. The Buddha continues. This time, the Buddha talks about the purpose of the Dharma. This is the famous interfaith dialogue statements by the Buddha. All right, so he's trying to put some confidence into Nigoda. 23 brackets 1, Nigoda, you may think. The recluse Gautama says this out of desire to win disciples. But you should not think so. That whoever is your teacher remain as your teacher, right? So I'm not here to convert you. You can stay with your teacher. And number 2, let your rules remain as your rules. Okay, I'm only reading the underlined parts. Everything is in a template here. Brackets 3, let your livelihood remain as your livelihood. So I'm not here to take away your livelihood. Then brackets 4, you should not think so. Let what you consider unwholesome continue to be so considered. You can still keep to your views, as far as they're not against the training. Then the next, let what you consider wholesome continue to be considered so. So you can, some of these views are all right, it's no problem. Then the Buddha again reminds Nigoda, 23.2, I do not speak thus out of desire to win pupils. I do not speak thus out of desire to make you fall from your rules. I do not speak thus out of desire to make you fall from your livelihood. I do not speak thus out of desire to establish you in teachings considered unwholesome. I do not speak thus out of desire to separate you from teachings considered wholesome. So what is it that the Buddha is teaching? Section 23.3. There are, Nigoda, unwholesome things that have not been abandoned, that if you don't abandon these unwholesome things, they'll bring suffering, will bring rebirth. And the next one, further down, and if you practice accordingly, then these defiled states will be abandoned. This negative state will be gone, and then you will attain wisdom. Okay. All right. Now this is where there's a diagram. I want to show you. Yes, there's table 2.2. All right. Very good. So this is a summary of what the Buddha said. Right. So notice on the left-hand side, the Buddha says, I do not speak thus out of desire to win pupils. Right. So here the quality is faith. Right. And then not to make you fall from your rules. That is, in terms of the quality of education, you can keep whatever you have learned, your training, education. The Buddha says, I do not speak out of desire to establish you, to make you fall from your livelihood, whatever profession you have, go ahead, keep it. And then he says, I do not speak out of desire to teach you unwholesome things. So this is a good philosophy. Then number 5, not to separate you from the teachings considered wholesome, right? The map is the diagram is a bit mixed up here. Okay, here should be wisdom, right? Then the Buddha says it is for the sake of overcoming unwholesome things, for the accomplishment of wisdom, right? Now, so let's cut across now. The Buddha's purpose is not to gain pupils, not to convert people from other religions. Because all religions teach, if they are good, they'll teach value of life. So this is already in the first precept. So as long as they keep to that, it's the same as keeping to the first precept. Number two, if you keep to your rules, whatever the rules are, and you're trained, then obviously you look for the truth. That's in keeping with the fourth precept. And then the next one is the profession. Whatever profession you have, you need to support yourself. So that's for your own happiness. And that is in the spirit of the second precept about taking the not given. Then number four is about what you consider true and so on. That's philosophy. And this is the third precept about freedom. Okay, meaning you are free to say what you want or not do something which you think is not right. And then number five is not to separate you from what is considered good. That is, here is learning, wisdom, and this has to do with the fifth precept. The fifth precept is about keeping the mind unclouded and clear, so that wisdom can arise in the mind for awakening. So you see this very similar teaching as the five precepts. The Buddha puts it in a more practical way. Instead, the purpose of following the Buddha's teaching is, you look at the quality, the last two, is to gain liberating wisdom. Liberating wisdom brings liberation. This is the two steps after the Eightfold Path. Step number 9, rightness number 9, rightness number 10, which we are doing in the other talk on the Eightfold Path, the other Zoom class. So number 9 is true wisdom, and number 10 is true freedom. So if you practice the Buddha's teaching, you'll gain true freedom, which is the knowledge of true reality, which brings you true wisdom, frees you from suffering. So this is a kind of summary of what the 7 points the Buddha gave. Okay, let's go back to the sutta now. So notice the Buddha takes a trouble to explain all this, but still Nigoda and the wanderers, they're silent. Okay, so look at 24 now. When this was said, the wanderers sat silent, dismayed, their shoulders drooping, hanging their heads downcast, at a loss for words, so possessed were their minds by Mara. So there you are. This time the sutta narrator directs our mind to the wanderers themselves. So they too somehow do not find that energy to respond, to say, yes, we will go for the 7-day training. The Blessed One thought, 24.2, then the Blessed One thought, every one of these hollow men is possessed by the bad one, Mara, so that not even one of them thinks. Let us now follow the holy life proclaimed by the recluse Gautama, that we may know it. For what do 7 days matter? It's just 7 days. Right? So here we see none of those wanderers, not even Nigoda, responded. Right? Then the Blessed One, having uttered the lion roar in the Udumbarika wondrous path, rose up into the air and returned to Mount Bhaja Peak. And the house lord Sandana too returned to Rajagaha. So sutta ends there. So here we see a very interesting case where you don't see any big glorious thing, someone listening to the Dharma and then becoming awakened, becoming arahats or at least tremendous. Here, nobody responded, right? So this is one of those situations where, although no one responded, the Buddha still taught on the Dhamma, right? However, the commentary says that because the Buddha spoke to these wanderers, in time, they will return to the Buddha. We're not told when, but just like the case of Upaka, the Buddha, whom the newly awakened Buddha first meets, he was just a wanderer himself. He was not, he was impressed with the Buddha, but didn't follow him. But later on, he came back. So the story here means that sometimes when we teach Dharma, people may not respond. It appears as if they do not understand, or if they understand, they do not accept it even. But that's all right, because you have planted the seeds. Give it time, it will grow. So remember this story, this Udumbarikā Sihanada Sutta, where the Buddha gave a long discourse in the Digha Nikaya, and no one responded. But still the Buddha taught, and it is called a lion roar, because the Buddha spoke the Dharma in faith for the benefit of others, even though they did not respond. So we should not feel bad if we fail. It's just that you have planted the seed, you give it time to grow. So the sutta ends here. Let's go to the question time now.
Thank you, Brother Piya, for explaining the sutta. We will now move to the Q&A session. Please feel free to ask questions live. Please make sure you turn your video on for better interaction during the Q&A session, or you can type your questions in the chat box. I will now pass to Sister Aixim for the Q&A. Sister Aixim, over to you. Sister Aixim?
Yeah. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Hello, this is my first session, and I really enjoyed.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for this talk. I have a few questions to ask. My first question is, when Buddha was explaining that even going through 4 jhanas is not enough for attaining the final goal, and is it referring to arahantship, or the final goal which Buddha is referring, like the heart wood, is it referring to arahantship?
No, not in this case, because here, these wanderers, they're not ready. So what the Buddha is trying to impress on them and on us is that what the wanderers regard as hardwood is only the divine eye, the recalling of past lives, how others fare according to to karma. So that was their hardwood. It's not arahatwood. But the Buddha is offering them that last step. You see, Buddha was trying very hard, trying to get them, say, come on, it's only 7 days. Even if you try hard, within 7 days, you can get it, But none of them responded. They couldn't somehow either see the point, or they were just not ready. Okay.
I have another question. Like,
all right.
If somebody if somebody reached Sotapanna, or maybe non-returner, does he gets this divine like the power of seeing the past lives, or is it comes by itself?
No, it doesn't come by itself. From what I gather, I don't even arahats, not all arahats have this ability to recall past lives, although most of them do, because if they have jhana, if they reach 4th jhana and they develop the quality, they can get it. So it doesn't come naturally. You have to develop it. It's like basically you sit quietly and then you say, okay, well, let me recall, what did I do this afternoon? Okay, what did I do yesterday? What did I do the day before? So you go on developing that kind of ability. So that's how the knowledge arises. It doesn't come automatically, no. Okay.
I will take a chance to ask another question.
Okay.
Is it same with divine eye or divine ear? I'm not interested to develop that, but I'm just curious to know, like, is it develops by itself, or it needs some practice? Like,
all those powers need practice. You have to cultivate them. They don't come naturally. What those monks attain is what is called the destruction of the influxes. They're not reborn anymore. They let go of all their views, and they overcome ignorance. Okay, so that's what they overcome. All right. But the other powers do not arise spontaneously. They have to be cultivated. If you look at a sutta like the Samanyapala Sutta, for example, it is mentioned that, and then their minds, with a focused mind, they direct it to whatever power. So they have to direct the mind to cultivate it. It's mentioned quite clearly. Okay.
Sorry, I will ask another. Do you think that we currently have the trainings available in this world, or the trainings been lost?
I would say much of it is lost, yes. But of course, if you really go to those forest teachers who are really practicing it, it's possible to get it. It is more difficult if you are, like living in the lay life, doing lay work. But it's possible. You have to, in this case, live a renounced life, because these are very deep mental cultivation, a very, very deep meditation. We have two big plans here. Plan A is for lay people like us. We keep the precepts. We're practicing permanence. You don't need jhanas, but you can attain streamlining. And that will keep you going so that you're prepared for to build up yourself in the next life, future life, within 7 lives. You will be able to go into deeper meditation. The other plan B is the renunciation. So if you're serious about monkhood, you keep to the Vinaya rules, which are to help you meditate, then you attain the jhanas. That will be able to help you overcome attachment to the body. And then using that mental powers, you'll be able to cultivate the other, the arahathood, in other words, the last of the 6 knowledges or the last of the 3 knowledges. So that's what meditation is for. It's for overcoming the limitations of the body and to attain arahathood in this life itself, which is possible if you go for that kind of training under monastic circumstances, under renunciation. Yes. Okay.
Okay, I really thank you for answering my questions.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next question.
Brother Piya.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, I have a question just now regarding to the end of the part of your sharing. You mentioned about planting seed. So it's a very good reference of this sutta for us to, when we meet someone worth helping, then we just plant the seed. My question is, if let's say we see that this person has a very, I would say, good foundation or karma for understanding all these things, but we just, come across them, just maybe in an event, just one time. So, and then it's a very short time. So in this case, it would seem like, we would have missed the opportunity to further sharing good things, dhamma to them. So, but I understand that we have already planted the seed. So in this case, can you comment?
Yeah, sometimes I meet really old friends. Say the last time we met was like 30, 40 years ago. And then this person comes along. He's now elderly, well, not so young. He tells me, oh, I remember you teach me loving kindness. I'm still practicing it now, and I'm very happy doing that. So when I hear that, I say, wow, that's really good, because it's something he learned long ago. He's still doing it now. So sometimes you may plant a seed, but you won't know, what happens to it. It's up to that person. And usually nothing is lost. Even the small effort, you might not see right away or in a spectacular way, but at some point, this person will recall, say, oh yes, I remember I learned this. And then he will practice it. So we don't measure our success in other words. We just do it because we enjoy doing it, we're happy doing it. We tell people because they are ready and they're willing, and that's good enough for us. In other words, we take care of our own practice in that sense. So we have done our part. The planting is already done. So nothing is lost, in other words. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Piya.
Okay. Next question.
Let me read out the question from the chat box. It's from
sure.
Haiping,
Yes.
Penang.
Yes.
Self-mortification and self-indulgence are
Yeah, two opposites. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I can't hear you. Transmission loss. Can you repeat, please? Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Self-mortification and self-indulgence are to be avoided.
Yes.
How do you define a good middle way to be practiced?
Okay, these two, huh? All right. This is found in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. Self-indulgence, the classic example is Siddhartha in his 3 palaces when he was young, enjoying all kinds of sensual pleasures. The problem with this kind of indulgence is we are caught up with the body, and the mind is like neglected, so that doesn't help. It doesn't mean married life is bad. It means you have to keep the 5 precepts, understand impermanence and the responsibilities that we have, and there are families to raise and so on. So we avoid sensual pleasures in that sense. Okay, in other words, we don't enjoy the body for itself just like that. Then the mind is not developed and the mind is neglected. The other extreme is to see the body as evil, and so not respect it or even see it better to be destroyed. So when we die, then we have eternal life, or that is called eternalism. Okay, the God believers, they have that idea. When this body dies, they believe they have eternal life. But that's not so. There's no such thing according to the Buddha. On the other hand, this person who thinks that destroying the body may be helpful, they think that, oh, that's the end of it. Once the body ends, there's no more life. That's called annihilationism. The materialists normally believe in this. They claim that this is our only life. So when we die, that's it. But again, the Buddha says that's not true either, because our consciousness goes on. So both have to be avoided because they are not helpful. They will keep bringing you back to square one. So the best way is the middle way, to use this body and mind, understand its nature, and build up your wisdom, understanding the nature of the body and mind. And with that, with the wisdom that grows from it, we're able to free ourselves from the body and then free ourselves from the mind. And then the consciousness will not find any more footing to be reborn. Then that is nirvana, and there's nothing more to talk about suffering. So then no one suffers in that sense. This is the best way I can put in words. Okay. All right. Let's go on.
Thank you, Brother Piya. I think I'll take over from Sister Isim. She's having some problem with her internet connection.
Sure.
Actually, Brother Haing's question is quite long. Should I just read it to you again?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he says self-mortification and self-indulgence are to be avoided. How do you define a good middle way to practice by married lay Buddhists to seek the truth, as there are married lay Buddhists who are too engrossed with temple activities, spiritual practice like meditation, attending retreats, reducing social interaction, trying to live a secluded life, upholding 5 or 8 precepts rigidly to the extent of neglecting their career, social, family duties as married lay Buddhists. I think he's referring to DN 31.
Okay. Yeah, so we can sometimes, we're not sure what path we want to take. See, I think as a Buddhist, you should look at yourself and say, what am I ready for? What can I do rightly without neglecting my responsibilities? We'll be doing the Sihanada Sutta soon. I mean, not so soon. I mean, this year anyway. And there you find all the details are given, what you can do as a layperson. And the practice also is given there. It's given in another short sutta called the Digajana Sutta, which is the reflection on impermanence. Okay. Sometimes we try to get the best of two worlds, you know, the lay life as well as the renounced life, and we fall in between and we get neither. And sometimes we get too involved with worldly activities under the title Buddhism, but then, you know, we're not practicing. So how can we, in a way, practice while we are in the world, so to speak, while we are running Buddhist activities? All right. Okay. I like the simple answer usually in my mind. Simplest answer here is make sure you know what reflection on impermanence is. Because if you do not know this, then you're going to waste your time running around and doing all kinds of things, and you don't benefit from it. On the other hand, if you understand the nature of impermanence, the nature of reflection on impermanence, it doesn't matter what you do without harming yourself. There are 3 rules to follow here: not harming yourself, not harming others, not harming the environment. So if you, let's say you're doing some kind of social activities, you're under 5 precepts. That is very obvious. So whatever you do, you must keep to the 5 precepts. What I notice is in some groups, they totally forget the 5 precepts when they hold gatherings. It's all gone and there's no more mindfulness there. It's as if the 5 precepts don't exist anymore. No, you can't. It's a Buddhist gathering. It's a Buddhist party and so on. So you have to adjust in that way. It can be done, and your wisdom comes in there. So this is where sometimes there is a danger when you have social things. You get leaders who have no who have no Buddhist background. They use it. They say, oh, you know, this one is a fun thing. Let's just do this. And then you find people will think, oh, that's okay according to Buddhism. That is wrong. That's bad leadership for the young as well as the old. And this is happening in the temples. This is very bad. It should not be done. On the other hand, if you reflect on impermanence, you are practicing impermanence, you may hold a gathering, even a party for young people, then you begin to see, even in the dance, there is impermanence. In the events of the social gathering, there is impermanence. So you get together, you make friends, and then you break up. That's part of impermanence. And over the years, after the party, you meet someone and you find people get married, people have children, they grow old, and then the children grow up. You see impermanence again. So don't just see that particular event, but you see it as the development of a bigger project, if you like. Some 40 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, I held so many courses, you know, for young people, Sutta courses, meditation courses. A lot of couples met those days. And I'm fine with that, you know. I didn't tell them, hey, you come for Suttas, no fraternizing. That would be terrible. I know that they will be pairing up. I know they're making friends. But as long as they don't pretend to attend classes and they're not listening, that would be good. So they know I was very strict those days, that I tell them you can come and look for your girlfriends and boyfriends, but at least give a year to the Dhamma. So you have both. And then later they got married, and you find they're happy today. They're building up. They have built up a good career, and they're getting old. That's the whole thing, you know. So there you are. You see, we have the best of both worlds, and people grow up and change. So if you don't see it that way, then all you have is what you say is fun, and that's the end of your Buddhist life. And that's it. And you start blaming Buddhism, and Buddhism doesn't answer back. You see? So when you combine the two, as a layperson, you'll benefit. All right, so this is one way of looking at it. On a personal basis, constantly reflect on impermanence no matter what happens. Then you will not see failure as something painful. You see failure as learning, and you will not be troubled by it, because suffering is the best teacher. Sometimes I would say it's the only teacher, because suffering is always there. There's always something that goes wrong, and then you ask yourself, what is it that went wrong? Why did it go wrong? How can I do it right? So you're learning. The wrong thing is when you give up. You say, oh, there's nothing to learn here. That's not. not it, right? So that is the second characteristic. The first one is impermanence. Second one is unsatisfactoriness or suffering. There's always this idea of pain. When you get something really good, it will end. See, like this Sutta gathering is going to end soon. Right? We have 1 year, very soon. The year is already flying. It's already 2021 now, you see? Right? And now we have 3 Zoom classes, right? So you begin to see impermanence, you also see suffering, dukkha, but anatta is the most difficult. That one we leave to another occasion to talk about it. So I hope these 2 ideas help you to, think something about this, how to combine the 2 and follow the middle way, basically by looking at the impermanence and unsatisfactoriness of the situation and working with that even as lay people. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Piya. We have a question from Alex Long. What are the conditions leading to stream winning?
Okay, on a simple level, you have to keep precepts well, try your best to keep precepts. It doesn't mean you don't break precepts. Keep your precepts well means you don't consciously break the precepts. And when you do break, you examine why. A learning situation again. So that's the meaning of keeping your precepts. Then you cultivate your mind, that is, building up the practice of impermanence. You can look up the chapter 25 of the Samyutta. There are 10 practices there. You can choose any one. The easiest is number 1 on impermanence of the 6 senses, aya, nose, tongue, body, mind. So that's second. That is the mental practice, reflection on impermanence. And you build up your wisdom by, reading the suttas and then seeing how the other stream winners live and how they learned. And then putting all the teachings together, you begin to see them connecting. And then you see your life also connecting with it. All right. So once you begin to see this impermanence in your life, you begin to understand why things change inside you, that nothing is worth holding on to. So you will not face any loss because you know nothing is yours in the first place. And once you know this, you feel joyful. So the life of a stream winner is joyful in that sense, even to aspire to stream winning, to look ahead and see this kind of wisdom, this kind of life gives you a sense of joy. So I would say that the simple egg is start by aspiring that I want to be a stream winner. May I be strong enough to be a stream winner? And then you build up from there and then read up more and more. There's so many things you can read about stream winning. You just need to message me. I will send those suttas to you, the notes to you, and then do your practice on your own. Okay, that's a good question. And the next thing is practice it, all right?
Thank you, Piya. Next question from Sister Rachel. She said I'm sorry I missed your explanation just now for one of the statements on table 2.2. Can you explain it to me again? Sure. It's about, she says, I do not speak this out of desire to make you fall from your rules. What has this got to do with the 4th precept of refraining from harsh speech?
Not harsh speech, false speech. Okay, I was just reflecting on this. This came to me this afternoon, actually, how all the values behind the 5 precepts connected with the first 5 points which the Buddha gave. I've written all these thoughts I had in section 2.2, I think, of the revised notes to the Udumbarika. So please message me. I'll send you the latest one. It's all there, nicely summarized. Or should I say the details are all there, actually, not summarized. The idea of the Buddha says, I'm not going to make you fall from your rules. I'm not going to teach you anything that is false. So whatever I say will be true. You will see something true in it, and then you will grow from there. So it's not a matter of me, making you, cheating you out of your beliefs and making you follow me. That's not the point. Because if you see the truth, then you decide for yourself. All right, so this is the short answer. As I said, the details are given with some deeper reflection in that. There's about 3 new pages have been added into the Udumbarika translation. So please, yeah, I might as well announce it now. We have this revised version with about 5-6 pages extra, and you can. We'll put it up on on this Telegram. Of course, if you want to be sure you get it, message me. We'll send
already done
directly. Already done. Okay, Ratna says already done. If you can't find it, just message me. I'll send it to you. Okay. And let me tell you the new section. The new section is 2.2. Yeah, that's right. Okay. There's a whole. You look up 2.2. After it's table 2.2, and under 2.2, you see about 3 pages of the reflection I did, of which I summarized a while ago. Okay. Okay. Nothing else.
Thank you, Brother Piya. A question from Go HK.
Yes.
Lay working and social life are full of low talks, creating a lot of defilements. How does this impact our life karmically?
I mean, it's not an easy question to answer. I mean, it's not like you do A and then you get A1 as a result. It's more like a habit, I mean, if we get caught up with lots of animal talk, then our minds will not really grow, because it's called animal talk because animals tend to just kind of look at the ground and look for food, and then have sex and then produce their kind and then eat each other up and so on, and that's about it. So you don't stand up straight. You don't see truth. You're not creative. That we understand, right? So in a sense, to know Buddhism is also to know truth and beauty. And to really know truth and beauty, you really need some serious thinking, serious discussion, joyful thinking, joyful discussion, not just low talk, not just animal talk. Animal talk is going round and round. It's about other people. It's just talking about, but not the real thing, in other words. Okay. There are, of course, ways of talking about a lot of things which can help us. So that's what we should be doing instead of animal talk. In other words, it should be something creative, something inspiring. The word inspiring means to breathe in. Okay, so in other words, you feel really good. It energizes you. That's the kind of talk we want. This doesn't mean you should be a boring person. You go out there and say, "Oh, okay, no more small talk." It's very hard to define small talk. Sometimes being kind to people, it seems like small talk. You ask for how are you, how's your family. I mean, that's fine, If you ask in a really spontaneous way, really warm way, it's a great way to start. And you find the Buddha does that even with others. There is this greeting before Dharma talk starts. So it's okay to start off like that, but not to sustain it all the way with it. And of course, the spice becomes the main dish. Is not very good, is it? Okay.
Thank you, Brother Piya. It's 10 p.m. already.
Okay. No more questions.
Yeah, we still have questions, but do you want to end now?
Okay, no, one more question. I don't mind. One question.
One more?
Yeah.
Okay, we will take the final one.
Okay.
It's from Chan Kamandi. He asks, "Is Nigoda of?" She asks, "Is Nigoda of the Jain section?"
Okay. No, that's a very simple question. Yeah. From my understanding, yes. Some scholars also think that these wanderers, either they were the early Jains, or they are practicing similar practices as the Jains. So all those practices mentioned are very similar to what the Jains are practicing. It's called tapo, or in modern Jain they call tap. By apocope, they remove the last vowel, so it is called tap. It is tapa, So yes, I would say probably either they were Jains or they were following the practices same practice as the Jains. Okay, I think that should end Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for your questions, and thank you, Brother Piya, for answering them. We will close the session for today.
All right, so let us do the closing salutations, dedication of merits. This moment is important for us to spend quietly for a while. This is the time when we reflect on the significance of this wonderful moment, although it's just about 2 hours. But this is a very precious time when we are building up ourselves, keeping in touch with the Dharma, looking within ourselves at our higher qualities, at the brightness inside, the light inside us. We have started off by reciting the precepts, paying homage to the three jewels, and keep practicing, observing the precepts, and doing some meditation. All these are very core practices of the Buddha's teaching. So this is when we can do what is called an act of truth. Say, by the truth of all these acts I've done, by my desire to learn, may I grow wiser. May I be at peace with myself. No matter what the world may be like around me, that I will maintain peace and clarity and joy inside me, that I may be able to share that energy with others and heal them, help them, guide them without getting lost myself. So reflect in that way so that we are happy within and we bring joy outside us too. Reflecting in that way, let us close with gratitude to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Bow down to the Buddha. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Bow down to the Dhamma. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Bow down to the noble Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay.
Thank you, Brother Piya. Thank you everyone for coming to the lesson today. We have a very good number today, about 90, about 100 of us in the start.
Very good.
Yeah. Thank you everyone, and hope to see you all in our next lesson 2 weeks later.
Tomorrow also there is a class. Tomorrow morning.
Not tomorrow.
Sunday, sorry. Sunday 10 a.m. We have something on the 5 gigas, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a talk? A Dhamma sharing? A Dhamma talk?
Sorry?
Is it a Dhamma talk, Brother Piya?
Yeah. It's a Dhamma talk. Yes, with lots of diagrams.
I see.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the sharing. Thank you, Sister Wendy.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Sister
Thank you.
Ratna. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Night,
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Brother
See y'all.
Piya. Good
Good
night.
night. Good night. Good night. Sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Piya. Thank you, Rana.
Thank you.
Thank
This is amazing. Thank you coming from all over the world. Hello, my young man.
Say hello.
Hello. Very good.
Hello, Kong Piya.
Okay. All right. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Very good.
Take care.
Thank you very much. You too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Kim Si, you got nice tupa behind you.